All right, episode 25. What's the best way to determine a market rent? Estimating market rent isn't a guess, it's one of the most mission critical numbers in your investment strategy. Set it too low and you leave money on the table. Set it too high and you risk sitting vacant or eroding cash flow. An inaccurate rent estimate can turn a profitable deal into a loss making one overnight. Let's unpack the definitive method for determining market rent like a pro. I've managed over $1 billion in real estate, 27 plus years in the business. I purchased 75 doors over 10 years, all while working full time. But I've also worked with thousands of investors, and I see this time and time again. They want to list a property for rent too high. And now it sits vacant for 3 months, and that vacancy costs them thousands. We recalibrated the rent for them, and suddenly we had multiple applicants within 48 hours. What did this teach me? Market rent isn't theory, it drives real outcomes. So in this video, I'm going to teach you exactly how to determine the best market rent in your area. So what you want to do is start with the comparables, what we commonly refer to as comps. If you were selling a property, how would you determine the sales price? Would you just pick a number, speak to some friends? Maybe you'll at least speak to a realtor, but they are going to pull comps to get you a suggested selling price. And with rentals, it's no different. So should you. So here's what I would suggest. Pull 3 to 5 active or rented listings matching bedroom, bath count, square footage, amenities, and proximity to your actual target property. For occupied comps, their rent reflects accepted market pricing, so prioritize them. Now, what I'm talking about here is if you go into some of these, rental listing sites, make sure, or at least what I would suggest, which makes it easier, is to find rental listing sites that search by map. So that's going to be able to see your property and surrounding ones, okay? Because if you're just going off of a list, it's too much back and forth. And all of a sudden you're finding a property that's not in your neighborhood, that shouldn't be worth, or maybe it's worth too much, and you're being led falsely. And that's going to be becoming very important, especially if you are using market rent as a purchasing decision. Okay, now the next point, you want to use data and manager input. Now, proprietary data if you can. So tap into property management databases, in-market PM firms. They're going to know the current offer and the lease outcomes. For example, on our website for Upper Edge Property Management, we have a free market rent evaluator. Now, that algorithm is locked into our market up here in Canada, but still, it gives you a pretty good idea depending on the type of property, the age, the cosmetics that you can put into one of our forms, because firsthand data is going to beat online asking prices every time. So what do I mean by that? Okay. Now, our firsthand data is, again, first it's an algorithm, but the firsthand data is the 5,000 plus properties that we've managed in all areas of our particular city. So what I'm saying here, use your network, find a local property manager, even 2 or 3, and ask them. And if you can't get in to get a free evaluation, use your realtor network to get an introduction. And don't ask a realtor for their opinion. Now, I'm not going to be very popular for saying this, but I used to be a realtor. And I knew back then I didn't have the market data or processes to know what rents should be. I mean, I wouldn't want to give an opinion as to what you can sell your rental property for because I'm a property manager. So why would you ask a realtor to give you a suggested rental price? In the best case scenario, they're inaccurate by a couple of $100. But if you saw my video from last week, I was doing the numbers and showing you how to calculate profit and cash flow. Often a single family home's profit is only $200. So if your realtor is off by $200, guess what? You're now losing money. Okay, who wants that? So that's the best case scenario. Worst case scenario, you're needing these rental prices for a property that you're purchasing pre-purchase and want to know if it's going to make money so you can decide to make a purchasing decision, so you can decide if you're going to buy it. And you ask the same realtor that you're using for the sale of for the amount that they think the property will rent for. Can you say conflict of interest? Not only does a realtor want to make the sale, they also have no accurate idea of the rental amount. All right. So, what you want to look for are what I call the differentiators: location, school zones, crime rates, transit access, premium or discount. So, what we do and the process that we have for our current clients is we will take a baseline property, okay? 3 bedroom, 2 bath, very something very standard that you see around our neighborhood or when we're doing this for other people in other states and provinces. And then you compare and contrast and remove value, the same as what a professional appraiser would do for a sales price. So, for example, 3 bedroom, 2 bath home is $2,000 in rent. Your property is a 2 bedroom, 1 bath home. You need to be able to remove appropriate amounts of value for that extra bedroom that's not there and the extra bathroom. Maybe the other ones have a finished basement and yours doesn't have a finished basement. Maybe that's worth another $100. But your property is, maybe it's on a very, very large double lot. Okay. Big, huge backyard, lots of trees. The comparable base property doesn't have that. So now you get an extra $100 on your rent. The point is, there's all these different things. Same thing with property condition and amenities. Does it have an updated kitchen? How much storage is there? Is it parking? Is it attached garage, double, single, triple, detached, double, single, triple? Maybe there's just a parking pad. Maybe there's a back lane, which is sometimes inconvenient for people. Maybe there's no parking at all and you can only park in the street, but you have to pay your city for a parking pass to stay overnight or be towed. Each of these things could be a 10 or 15% variance. Okay. So, one of the other points, once you figure that out, then you want to try to verify with what the institutional data is out there. So you want to benchmark. Okay, maybe there's HUD, all right, that you can use in the U.S., or you can be using CMHC in Canada, Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation. Okay, you want to know when the reports come out. Again, it's a guideline, but if your realtor and your estimates come out with a $3,000 rent, but one of these government agencies is reporting that the average rent in that neighborhood is 2,500, are you right or are they right? Or do you need to at least, give your head a shake and at least go and look and see why is there a difference, right? And if it's, yeah, maybe there's a situation right now that came up that makes your rent a little bit higher, then that's great, but at least you knew enough to compare to those reports. You also have to look at demand and vacancy trends. Okay, so when I talk about supply and demand, when I'm talking about this, to me, you have a vacancy rate of, let's say, 5%, which is kind of standard versus what we have here in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada, which is less than 1%. So, supply and demand. When you have too much supply, prices go down. Okay. When you don't have a lot of supply, demand goes up. It's basic economics 101. So, if our supply is low, 0.8% vacancy rate, our demand is very high. Therefore, our prices go higher. But is it temporary? And what is causing that vacancy rate? So you really need to look at this, right? Search for those posted vacancy rates. Again, one of those government agencies, I know for CMHC, they definitely show that and break it down per city, per asset class, for 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms, condos. It's all broken down, very, very granular. So, when you have low availability or high search volumes, that also indicates a lot of increased pricing power. Now, you could also have very long showing periods. Like, let's say that you're already trying to show this property. That means that you're probably overpriced. You also want to incorporate what the industry refers to as revenue management dynamics. What does that mean? Well, in multifamily or high turnover markets, rents may shift dynamically with demand. What the heck does that mean? Okay, let's say you have a stable market, but then a developer comes in and builds a 100-unit high rise. Well, for that next year or two, your rental is going to be affected. All of the leads that are coming into that market may be looking at that brand spanking new apartment versus yours, where you did a spot painting after your last tenant left a few nail holes, Yes, I've done it too. And don't forget to adjust pricing monthly to affect seasonality. Now, what are we talking about there? Well, rents are naturally going to be higher in July versus January. Again, think of your situation, of yourself. Now, we're up here in Manitoba, Canada. Yes, our July can go up to 35 degrees, so that's 95 Fahrenheit, but it can swing to minus 35 degrees in the winter. So ask yourself, if you're a tenant, do you want to wade through 2 feet of snow carrying moving boxes on December 31st, which is your move-in day, which of course happens to be New Year's Eve? Who wants to move in those conditions? Of course not. So supply and demand would dictate. If there are less people looking for a place in January, then landlords are going to have to drop their prices across the board to attract those few people. Okay? School is out. Families want to move in July and August when there will be minimal impact to their kids switching schools. So demand is fierce in the summer, and therefore tenants line up for any available housing or apartments. So guess what? Rental prices increase. Okay, so now you've chosen a rental price. Now you need data. So the next step, monitor inquiries and showings post listing. Track the leads per week. If there's low interest, drop the rent incrementally. $50, $75, $100. If you're being flooded with a lot of leads, consider a smaller increase then. Now, here's a good rule of thumb. You want to make sure your pictures and ads are good. Now, in this day and age, people have really short attention spans, so you're competing on clicks. So let me ask you, do you know how to take great photos, like really, really good photos, photos that stand out? Do you have a 360 camera to stitch together a virtual tour? If not, I'd start there before even advertising or determining your rental price. Now, if you want to learn how to do these things, I do teach these concepts every Thursday in my free webinar, so that link is in the show notes. But assuming your ads look amazing, if there's a lot of clicks on the ad, then your pricing is probably good. If you have a lot of people that go to the property but don't apply, then there's something wrong with the property, or another way of saying that is what you're offering doesn't match the price you're asking. For example, let's say you have a 3 bedroom for $2,500, but the third bedroom is tiny. It doesn't have a closet. You can't fit anything more than a single bed in there. Then the value doesn't match the pricing. So that also is a signal to decrease the price until you start getting applications. But get the data. Ask your leads after they, leave the property after the showing for their feedback. Give them an online survey. Listen to what the public is telling you. Maybe use a platform that automatically asks for feedback after the showing is finished and sends them a copy of your application online. Now, if that stuff sounds foreign to you and you still have a paper copy of your application, I'm going to refer you back to that webinar that I do every Thursday. Like last week, we were teaching people how to use the 360-degree camera, how to upload it, how to stitch together a virtual tour, how to post that on Facebook for your ads, how to use and program an online self-scheduling platform, and how to program that system to automatically give your current tenant 24 hours notice each time a showing is scheduled. So hit that link in the show notes. Okay, next, you want to use analytical tools for backup. You want to compare data using tools that you can find on the internet. A Rent-A-Meter, Zillow, Zestimate, Cash on, Mashavisor. I mean, I don't know when you're going to be viewing this particular video, but there's going to be a ton of these other things out there. So my advice is to also take advantage of those. Now, my next point is the good old-fashioned internet. It's a good starting place, but they're not answers, they're just starting points. My next point here is conservative cash flow scenarios. So you want to be using these different models that are much more conservative. What am I talking about? You want to underwrite using a rent that's maybe 5 to 10% below your peak estimate. That protects you if the market softens, or maybe there's higher interest rates. But the point is, make proper buying decisions. Mention, there's so many people that reach out to us for free market rent evaluations. And, I wanted to mention that it's important to do this pre-purchase if you can, right? Don't use pie in the sky numbers. Don't try to make the rental purchase fit what you emotionally want, because you want somebody to validate that it's okay to buy this thing. Emotions have no place in business. If you choose a lower rent and you can still cash flow, that's the sweet spot. If rent rates increase, then bonus. Now you can use that cash flow to build up a maintenance reserve. And yes, you should not spend the extra money. Save it for a rainy day, because it's not if, but when those midnight phone call emergencies will rear their ugly head. Now, my final point, you want to plan for rent control or regulation. You want to know your regional rent laws that cap these increases. Your market rent must comply. So, in Ontario and other parts of Canada and in Manitoba, annual rent increases are limited. An example for Manitoba, in this year, we're only allowed to increase 1.7%. That's like 17 bucks on $1,000 rent. So you want to plan accordingly. Now, each region is going to have their exceptions. You can call them loopholes. I call them exceptions. So you can plan accordingly. Maybe buying, for example, in Manitoba, you can buy a building that's constructed 20 years or newer, so it actually doesn't have any rent control. Look, investigate, and know your local region. So, in summary, market rent is not just a number you guess, it's a number you build. Start with active and rented comps, validate with professional data, adjust for differentiators, and stay flexible using demand signals and pricing tools. Model conservatively and account for local regulations. Now, if you want to master your rent modeling and avoid costly mistakes, then register for one of our free market rent masterclasses, where I'm going to walk you through live deals, comp analysis, and spreadsheets designed to drive seven-figure equity. Or you can join our email list for weekly deal breakdowns and investor systems. Because if you want to build your wealth through real estate, if you've been delaying and delaying, now it's time to get serious.